Greetings, everybody. We've gathered around the table again today, and amazingly enough, we actually have 4 of us here.
Hello, Joe.
I'm back.
Yay!
I'm almost not sick.
Almost.
Almost.
We've almost beaten a dab with him.
A month. It took us a month of beating him. That's why he couldn't show up. He was just bloody in a corner somewhere.
Silently weeping.
Almost got that sickness out of him.
Yep.
Well,
The devil.
Yeah.
I'm good enough for what we're doing here today, but before we get to that, something that I've been messing around with while I haven't been sick. That's what I've been carrying for the past month and a bit since I got it. Steel Will Griffin with 14C and aluminum handles.
Steel will?
Or sorry, real steel.
Real steel.
It's your knife.
Some people.
Hey, I am delusional.
I've been beaten on for the last month. I don't know a steel will from a Will Ferrell.
Come on now.
I've been enjoying Real Steel recently. They're nice.
You have their little fixed blade little lacquer, right?
Yeah.
I like some of their stuff. I don't like to grip on other things.
That's fair.
They've got some pistol grippy stuff that doesn't fit my personal comfort of pistol grippiness. But yeah.
I just like that this is a stupid smooth
Button lock.
plunge lock, yeah. Yeah, okay. That's been my fun for the past while.
Alright, I'm carrying Benchmade Proper. Been doing a bit of a regrind. It's extra shiny.
It's a little shiny here.
You get a little zoom in on that.
It's a little shiny on the bevels.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of a hand grind
I
on
can
it. So.
barely see the tip of the butterfly wings anymore.
I'll be sanding those off too. You won't see those at all by the time I'm done. But yeah, still jury's out on the Benchmade Proper. Might give opinion a little more in depth further on down the road, but kind of like it, kind of don't.
Fair enough.
Yep, that is fair.
Going to me?
Yes.
Where's my knife? Today I got the Zero Tolerance 452. It's
It's a big knife.
a big knife.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get in your pocket, but
There's some flash.
Yeah. It is one of
That's
your
it.
favorites, and it is flashy, but I'm still waiting for other colors.
one day.
No doubt, right? Get on that. And
Mix
it's
it up.
train.
One day. I like that color a lot.
Seafoam green. That's what I want to see.
And I'm carrying the massive Spyderco Toad. It's just a fun little knife. It's one of the weird ones in my collection that I enjoy.
It's been coming out to play a lot here.
Yeah.
The more I have it, the more I play with it, the more I like it. So yeah, it's gonna
I think
happen.
you've been showing that one off more than you've been showing off the Crooked River. Seriously.
You and your
That's
little
awesome.
rinky-dink knife. It's
Yeah.
great.
So yeah, we would just like to take this opportunity to thank a good buddy of ours, Steve Bebytime. He has supplied us tonight with libations of wonderful varieties.
Deliciousness.
Yeah,
Him
dude.
and I chat quite often on Instagram about the different drinks that we have because I've been known to post a beer and knife pick from time to time. So he very thankfully contributed some fantastic drinks for us to try.
Libations.
Yep.
Joe and I this evening are participating in Sapporo. Fantastic rice beer.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. And so far, quite happy with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And me and Paul are partaking in some Smirnoff Double Black.
Dangerous stuff.
It is.
Super dangerous
Yeah.
stuff.
It's a little too smooth.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty smooth for what it is.
Yeah, we
so-
all had sips of it before we even mixed it up, and yeah, that's some tasty vodka.
It's the nicest vodka I've ever had, probably.
hmm
Most
So,
of it
yeah.
tastes like rubbing alcohol.
Alright.
Thank you very much, Steve. We
Yeah,
greatly
thank you very much,
appreciate
Steve.
it.
Rock and
Really
roll, brother.
appreciate it.
That's awesome, man.
Today we're going to be talking about giant,
Not so little guys.
giant, big, overbuilt, tanky, workhorse, big knives.
And if anyone knows anything about big knives, you can tell by what's going on in the collection here is that Joesph gets giddy when it comes to a blade that's over a 5-inch blade and a pocket knife at the
Yep.
same time.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's goofy.
He likes them nice and thick.
They're fun.
Extra thick. Yeah.
No. I think he needs to be beat.
Didn't hit me quite hard enough.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe Joe's liking to be
Yeah.
that slightly.
That explains a whole bunch. So,
All right.
where do we want to start with our
Well, I mean,
big old knives.
really, compared to a Benchmade proper, compared to a Spyderco tote, I mean, your 450 is getting up into the big boy realm.
It's big for the
For
pocket
sure.
for a daily.
But compared to a traditional sized pocket knife, and why you would carry something that's more EDC friendly, on the reasons why you would actually break out
Yeah,
Mhm.
3.5 inch.
something that is over the top. And I mean, like, let's just get a small spattering of what we're talking about by over the top. And no one knows over the top better than Cold Steel.
True facts.
I'm still
So-
gonna call that over the top.
Yeah. Okay, so the best part is none of these are the biggest offering that we brought in tonight. If you're talking crazy, Nigel's got it with him here. You're
I think it's
talking
just-
crazy.
Makes you giddy.
Yeah. So
Wow.
an overall length of bigger than the ZT mat, and an overall
True
weight.
story.
It's more than a foot long.
All right,
Jesus.
you gotta humor his weight. How many coconuts is this thing?
All of the coconuts.
All of the coconuts.
Jesus. That's nuts.
Now, to put it into comparison, I understand you like the frenzy. I understand. Put it in comparison with Cold Steel's big knives. I mean, some other companies and their big offerings.
Yep.
I personally have a ZT301 that I'm trying to stab Nigel with.
Hey, I've already had my
Well,
one.
that's why I didn't get you.
I just had to put the forgot it.
It's just
He wants to remind you what has happened and what will happen
And
again.
obviously, Paul's 452.
Yeah.
CF as well. Another good offering. If you had your 220, that would be another good offering. That was a bigger.
It's a pretty big, thick
ZT
knife,
as
yeah.
well.
Crooked River.
Well, the eight-
Well,
River.
yeah, if you had your Crooked River, and I was going to bring up the Benchmade Adamas.
Mhm.
The ZT 850 too. 850. No.
As well.
Yeah.
Also.
The Bolshevik blue carbon fiber, yeah.
Mhm.
Spyderco, Resilience, they also have another one called the Tatanka, and maybe we can blurb a Tatanka in there because it's a monster.
Yeah.
But
I want one.
Oh, Spyderco military too, I suppose. It's about the same size.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, M16.
hmm Those are nice, big, beefy options as
Is that a
well.
16 or a 21?
I think it's
It's a 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
21s were the spear points because there was only one blade shape. We covered this like a month ago.
I remember it being wider. I remember they had tattoos.
No, the Tanto
Fair
is
enough.
always
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Go watch my episode right now.
Your episode. I'm out of here.
Well, it wasn't your episode apparently because they retained the information. But anyway, our episode, digging a hole
Yeah.
and talking about the SOG Pentagon Elite, which is almost as crazy as any of the Cold Steels that we've
Yep.
had to offer. And
Which- It's just kind of silly.
it's getting up there with the counterpoints and stuff.
Like you're
that,
saying,
right?
very military in the kind of tip, the way it's designed
Mhm.
and stuff like
Pearson
that.
power, yes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the kind of the reasons why we wanted to have any sort of these big crazy folders, and I think there's several reasons, and
Yeah.
we'll hopefully go through some of them.
Why you'd carry something this big.
Yeah, you bet.
But the first one, military use, military application. And what does that realistically boil down to?
Being able to do anything and everything out in the field as far as last-ditch effort to survive yourself in whatever scenario you might get yourself into as far as self-defense-wise, opening up ration cans, keeping yourself fed, cutting
Yeah.
ropage, yeah,
Kind of
whatever.
an overbuilt-ish lock.
My favorite word.
You got that as well?
I
It's
like
all
that.
about ropage. Yeah.
Pretty thick blade stock for a SOG.
Now, if you were a
And
military
BG10.
guy, would you have a fixed blade and then something like this as a backup, or?
You might have more than one tool, or potentially like this and a multi-tool, or a
Right.
fixed blade and a multi-tool, or something like that type of idea in the military aspect. But pretty much they are kind of like a utility chore and last
Last ditch.
resort self-defense.
From a lot of the guys I've talked to who are in active duty or have served within the modern era, they seem to really like having a folding knife as opposed to a big old dirty fixed blade, depending on the job. The convenience of being able to fold something up that's normally that big open and stick it into your pocket and still be able to rely on it, I think. Pardon me.
Use the clip and stick it to your molly webbing or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think anything exterior of your body as well is going to have potential to hang up on stuff. So the factor that you might have a folding knife that can be a little more discreet and doesn't protrude out of your body because of whatever pocket you happen to be carrying it
Of
in,
course.
right?
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I think there's definitely some application for that, and definitely in a bigger intimidation factor as well. When you've got something that all of a sudden you break out, and it's just a monster long blade as a last resort knife. The Frenzy's a perfect example of that. That is a scary knife to
mean
be
looking.
thrown out at someone and say, like, yeah, I'm about to get some slashy action going on type of thing.
Get away from me.
Wow, like, you might think twice about advancing any closer. And then a military option, I'm not saying it might be the most utilitarian.
And theoretically, this wouldn't necessarily be your last-ditch effort. You might pull your knife to get your pistol out or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
To help break through.
to break the distance.
Yes,
and
no,
keep you away long enough. If I get hung up or something like that.
Yeah, if you get hung up, potentially.
Kind of like how we touched base in the SOCP video, that's kind of part of the intention of that one, of the design, was help to create room so you could be able
Create distance,
to get your pistol out and stuff like that.
In a very, very tight situation.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So when
And again, but if you're just talking about like defending and stuff like that, seconds matter, and at that point in time, I don't think the pulling out of the knife. It's just getting the situation resolved with as quick as possible, and 9 times out of 10, it is going to be with firepower.
100%.
Not with a knife and lethal force, but in a close situation. And again, with the SOCP, you were drawing it out in the reverse, which was very close to your body to be able to get very effective.
To give yourself
a little bit different with a folding knife where you still have to deploy it. Now, the nice thing about the larger of these folding knives, and we touched on the SOCP folder,
that's a Kubaton right there.
pulling it out and striking, deploying at that point, and then using... I think if you need to.
Yeah, and holding somebody at bay.
For sure.
Yeah. Most of the large knives we have here can really fit easily into that category of a blunt striking instrument if need be.
This wouldn't be the most comfortable one to use, but
in hand, it's a hammer. It's not
Well, I'm not suggesting that the super wide stuff is being used for that, but
it's always
if you need
it to. Final palm. So
potential soldiers having off time while they're abroad, maybe they're not allowed to carry firearms unless they're on duty, but they're allowed to carry a knife.
Couple things that we might want to mention as well is particular blade shapes while we're talking about military, and that's where some of these big blades.
And there are better options out there
for sure
than some other things.
Things like the Pentagon Elite here with this sharp tooth tip on it. See if I can do this and not tip them more towards the ball this time.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So I'm even going to pick this guy up here and just try and help show it off.
That tip's a little strange.
So
it's got a bit of a sharpening up on the back side of the swedge there.
It's almost like a double Tonto.
Just to try and help with the piercing aspects.
And even a traditional Tonto for good old strong tip piercing work type of thing, right? So
traditional American Tonto.
Yeah.
It's been around long enough. It can be considered.
Well, and I mean, we're not talking variations
sorts.
of Tontos out there with double grinds and triple grinds and recurves and But anyway, I suppose.
Yeah, very much so.
Since we're still talking about the military application, this one being designed specifically for that.
DT301, now I have tiggered the hell out of this thing. But initially, it was actually a military knife. It was very much a big, beefy hand grenade of a knife. Is the easiest way for me to explain it, right?
Super.
So go ahead.
Super thick, super tanky, reliable things. They're not going to fall apart on you. Sort of idea.
I have physically chopped wood with my ZT301.
I've pried steel panel doors with this.
So, I mean, there are definitely big, reliable, strong options out there for both utility and self-defense if they need to. Right?
So kind of jumping off of the military aspect and the obvious intention of use sometimes in certain situations, kind of touching, or we were going to jump into the other aspect of why people might carry large fixed blades would be self-defense reasons.
A big, scary knife to back someone up. Now, we live in Canada, so we can't promote that.
No.
But
in the U.S., where these knives are made,
when you've got an overall
Or at least where the
size
companies
bigger
are.
than the ZT match,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you line that up, then it's
that's a
like
foot. That's a foot.
I'm not
12 and a quarter.
measuring. Yeah, I'm not measuring anything now. If it's
Yeah.
over 12 inches, it's just referred to as larger than the ZT match from now on.
Yep, that
It's-
That's like 8 inches of like you're away from my hand.
Yeah.
Especially with hands like mine. Like I can backpedal is not the
Yeah.
right word, but you know.
Yeah.
Five-
That's a lot of distance you can create.
5-inch cutting edge
Yeah.
on that
Dude,
bad boy.
like that is substantial.
And we probably should bring into play, because the other knife, that would be a very good option.
Yeah.
Backing up. And, the good old tie line, it's been around since however long.
I see these in very similar categories. I mean, even this one too,
Yeah,
but
the
these are
counterpoint.
very, very similar.
Not necessarily military-oriented, like maybe even like the Ring on Elite. These are very much big backup tools that...
And
Yeah.
as far as backing up your grip, there is something to be said when you're comparing something like the
There is
two
a substantial
knives,
amount
right?
of difference.
Even if you were to say, okay, 3-finger grip, I'm desperate, I just want to keep some sort of hacking distance, you get a lot more reach with that 6-inch blade.
You also get that intimidation factor to back people
Well,
away from you.
the proverbial shotgun racking. When that pops out, you have
Yeah.
this big
I'll give
shiny
you that
blade in
too.
front of you.
The shiny blade, the psychological factor behind it of having the big scary knife.
That is a big knife.
Now, in no way are we promoting to carry a big scary knife to intimidate.
Not in Canada.
Not
Well, not in
the
general, yeah,
slightest.
that's fair.
You better know a thing or two about knives if you're going to pull out a knife in the first place,
Yep.
or you should not be pulling out a knife in the first place.
Follow your
Yes.
local laws, people.
You should, well,
Not
no,
that, but just know what you're doing with a knife.
sensibility.
Absolutely.
I've had people talk to me about how they think they were confident defending themselves because they were a cook in a kitchen and used a knife
Yeah.
all day.
Handle a knife, yeah.
I've handled a knife all day. I know what I'm doing, and I'm
No
like,
one will ever disarm me.
are people disarming you in a kitchen? Like
You should probably get a different job.
Yeah,
the
is that
false
really a concern?
confidence that something like this gives you is astounding and it's shocking. And
Yeah.
we're not saying that you should have this knife in any way.
100%. But a lot of places where you're allowed to carry something like this, you're probably also going to be allowed to carry a pistol, more than likely. And if you're carrying a pistol, potentially
In North
anyways,
America.
in North America,
Yeah.
potentially, if you were to carry a pistol, you're going to go to the range and you're going to practice with that thing. And the same can be said with this. That's where I want to get.
It
Is that
needs to be.
you need to be
this, or you shouldn't
practiced.
be carrying this.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole psychological aspect is only part A in an equation that has part B and part C involved in it.
Yeah,
If you're thinking that you're just going to scare people with a knife, so you should get a big knife to scare people, that's how people end up dead.
that's how people
Yeah.
get hurt with their own knives.
Straight up, it's
Yeah.
and they don't know how to handle them, and so they do end up getting injured, things like that, right? So, if ever in an area of the world where this comes into play and you have to defend yourself, learn techniques, seek out techniques, practice, repeat.
Yeah,
Train.
don't just think
Yeah.
that the object is going to save you. You have to know how to use the object.
It doesn't put a Superman suit on you as soon as you draw a knife out.
Yeah.
Having
There's
basic self-defense skills in general without knives would probably be a good idea too.
Having a good lockdown on those essential versus, like, I used to fence, and we would have an offhand weapon, but that was competition fighting. Don't go to a competition-based style of fighting, and expecting, to meet somebody else who draws their knife, and then you guys have this, the toxic masculinity fueled standoff fantasy where you're standing there, the other guy's got his knife, and I know all the best techniques, so I'm going to win. No, it's a shitty situation to be in. You should be learning how to get yourself out of that situation as quick
A
as
good pair
possible.
of running shoes.
I was going to
Yes.
say, don't think that HEMA's going to teach you how to knife fight.
How good is your traction? Because that's going to
Yeah.
be what saves your butt in the long run. And the egotistical of I have to stand my ground and defend myself is garbage. I don't care what
Yes.
anyone
100%.
says.
Mhm.
Lying asleep alive in your bed
That's
takes
winning.
precedent over drawing a knife on someone any day of the week.
That should be the ultimate goal, really,
Yes.
at the end of the day.
Right.
And
For those,
the best defense at the end of the day is getting the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can all agree on that.
Yeah, for sure. People talk about what do I use if I'm farther away from someone. I'm like, if you're far enough away from someone that they can't get you, get out of
Why
there.
are you still there?
Yeah,
You're
don't
not-
let them get closer.
Don't think that you need to stand on that train platform to get the next train to. Staying alive is better than missing your ride home by 15 minutes or whatever it may be.
And that's
Having to wait an extra 10, 15 minutes for the next train as opposed to getting stabbed or something.
People put these weird priorities in front of their own safety sometimes.
De-escalating a situation as opposed to trying to escalate and make the situation worse.
Yeah.
And that's, although it is one of the major philosophies of use for knives this big, that is why I kind of wanted to touch on that. It's just...
Bad idea if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, long blade makes more sense, all that being said, as opposed to a shorter blade.
Well, and Frenzy's a prime example of that. The reach on this, the grip on this, and extended reach, and the backup factor that this thing has is absolutely ridiculous.
It's a very slightly hooked blade.
Yeah.
It's mean.
It's piercing power and intimidation power factor with the counterpoints and the tie legs because of the spear point, the dagger, the angel.
And then if you want to go for some good intimidation factor.
Yeah, like, if somebody came at me with that, I'd be like, you can have whatever arm you want. I'm not going to let you cut off my arm.
Yeah.
I like my arms and I want to keep them.
If someone is attacking you and you draw this knife, the guy that is attacking you is like, wait, were you going to rob people too? Because there's no other reason to have a knife this big in your pocket.
Should we team up? You know how much we can break in?
But also, I
Sensible.
like my hands. Let me keep them.
Yeah.
Sensible people do not have that knife in the EDC. People that are paranoid or / up to no good have a knife that size in there.
Or maybe work in a knife shop.
Yes.
If you're going to carry it and you take it to work, whatever.
But in an urban environment, what sort of possible use could you have for a blade
None.
like that? And if it's for your job, shouldn't you have something more sturdy, like a fixed blade anyway?
Yeah.
I never really understood those arguments. To be like, oh yeah, I need this to open boxes.
Even
What are you
in
talking about?
in a work environment where you may or may not work in a knife shop, this is still something that should not necessarily be approved at work, just because it's not exactly a functional knife.
Even, I can see a lot of places not letting you have something this size.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for
You know what
sure.
I mean?
And put in perspective. That's the 452. Put that back down against.
That is
what
a
we're looking
4-inch blade in a
Jeez,
knife.
yeah. It looks so tiny.
Yeah, it's a joke compared to what's up there.
It looks like a propper sitting next to a mound of giants,
Mhm.
right? And people talk, the Shabazz in particular,
Talks about how big it is.
murdery.
Yeah.
Well, this is the introduction to murdery. Like,
I've carried this at weddings, okay?
Yeah.
It's not that murdery. Come on.
Eh,
It's a little murdery.
it's a little murdery, but it's not. I don't know. It's
I
right.
feel like the blue helps take away the murdery.
Oh yeah, it does. Well,
In this case.
in this case, it does. It's a very pretty transition.
So, last but not least, the reason that we could have a very, very large knife is some sort of outdoor utility task, where for whatever reason you don't want to carry a big fixed blade. Big fixed blade. Yeah.
And I was getting stabbed.
Everybody gets one. That's right. You want to go with some sort of folding option that is larger than the ZT map.
Let's say that these two don't necessarily apply to that.
No.
Maybe not the Paradox, but we do have some very large folding
Yeah.
pads.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That guy, and I throw the Adamas back up in this contention as well. Does he?
I mean,
Nigel and I both have had the Spartan for like a camp.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
As well
you
as
as well.
yeah. Resilience, I think, is also a very,
Actually, and I have to say, this is kind of where I top out for my like EDC folders that I have a serious use for. This is kind of about as big as it gets for me.
But as far as utilitarian use of very large, these are great examples
You know what? Even the Adamas. I'll say even the Adamas.
of large things that you could use in a utilitarian situation.
Out
You're
in the
probably
bush.
not dropping out a counterpoint or a paradox from Neo camping.
Something like that.
You could, but yeah.
little bit.
Ball
With bearings and everything else,
Ball
probably
bearings.
not.
Yeah. So, having said that, they can do a lot of heavy-duty tasks. I think all of us have, once upon a time, done some wood chopping, some hacking, some slashing.
But it is kind of a
All those
compromise.
things.
But it is kind of a compromise, really, if you're going for a blade like this rather than just going for a fixed blade with a slightly shorter handle.
Yes and no. I mean, in camping and survivally that we know it in this day and age, I mean, you're pulling up with your vehicle and very short travels to campsites, maybe even parking right at the place where you plan on camping. So you've got your axe, you've got all your camp needs. Really, all I'm doing with this particular knife is cutting the paracord from time to time and maybe a little bit of food prep.
It's something that you might have bought for fun, and then you're like, hey, screw it, I'm going camping, I'm going to go and play with that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Gonna chop some wood, I'm gonna do something big.
And it is nice to know that in an emergency situation, these guys can perform.
They will all perform, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, there's a reason why people can still take a Swiss Army knife to this day when they're camping in utility, and a Swiss Army knife is still
Very usable.
a fantastic option as far as a small knife carry is, because we've gotten to the luxury now where we've got multiple tools and weight is not a factor.
Yeah.
And we can carry all of these tools very openly and not have to worry about pack weight. Whereas if you're talking about pack weights, a tool to do multiple things, something beefy, heavy duty, some of our fixed blades, the Bark Rivers that we have in our collection, the things like that.
Glamping versus camping
Yeah.
kind of idea.
Yeah.
Drive in and
But the term camping is becoming more and more,
glamping.
well, 21st century. No knives for self-defense, no knife for survival. Campsites are prepaid campsites where I'm packing firewood in with me.
Yeah, the
These-
cooler of food.
These are things now that are very
Well, driving things in versus walking things
normal.
is vastly
things.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and that's becoming everyday camping. The stuff that a lot of the guys do, and Nigel and myself do at least once a year, every year, is hike to the backside of the middle of nowhere where weight is a factor.
Yeah, it is.
The backside of the middle of nowhere.
Not even the
Yeah.
front side to the middle of nowhere.
The
You like it in the backside.
And I think any one of these would succeed in the backside of the middle of nowhere, ultimately, but you may not be your first choice.
The batoning aspect, and I know a lot of guys, there's pros and cons for batoning, and we've brought out big silky saws that are awesome for processing now, and it's cutting down having to do the small knife aspects as your tools are getting better and better.
Simmer down.
Everybody gets one, and then it includes the spills at my house, you son of a bitch.
Fine.
Another reason somebody might want a knife with a blade this large that folds in half: contract work, construction,
Construction
dirty
work.
jobs.
Yeah, I mean, even like gardening work would be decent with a lot of these.
Something where you may need to force something to work, and the tool you have on hand happens to be a folding Spartan, and that's what you got. You were saying you've seen some people really abuse these.
Oh, highly.
They're very abusable.
day-to-day work, yeah. I mean, like everything from construction jobs to painters to landscapers to whatever. and things like the Spartan in particular, or the M16 from CRKT, and I think a big part of that is the price point as well.
They're affordable.
They're a very affordable option as something you can really beat on is still going to be a reliable option.
And they hide away in your pocket pretty well for what they are.
Spartan, I disagree on.
I'll give you that.
This thing's a monster. M16 is actually surprisingly thick.
Because of how wide and like the belly on the blade, both the Spartan and the Raja definitely do take up more pocket real estate. But
This isn't as bad.
But I mean, if you
as far as like
But again,
even
the M16 is a very carryable size.
Yeah.
But even with like the Spartan and stuff, if you have nothing else in your pocket and you're just doing a dedicated knife pocket, it's not that bad of
No,
a carry.
yeah.
Like it doesn't feel heavy.
And if you have a rough and tumble job, it's entirely possible that you've actually got the cargo pocket down on the bottom type of thing that
That's
you
it.
can even use as a dedicated
Yeah.
pocket if you need to, right? So
I've carried it in my back pocket really well too. I like it.
now I think
I've sat on a Spartan that way.
Yeah, it's not
less
comfortable to do
than
that.
comfortable.
one of the things we do have to dabble on when it comes to a hard use fixed blade and outdoorsy and utility and things like that, it is the fact of their one downside. Especially in outdoor camping environments, things like that, is there's this thumb plate that breaks off every time you
Try baton with it.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful with that.
Not hold up.
Important to note that particular
Of course,
bug.
of course.
Yeah.
Then the other downside is they have an inherent brake already built into them. The pivot point.
It's something to be aware of. If that lock fails,
There's this little spot right here
Yep.
where the handle and the blade are not the same thing.
Yeah.
I would almost recommend doing that if you're going to try and baton with it and stuff like that. Is break a lock and then
Yep. I have even actually seen guys batoning with Swiss Army knives and
Yeah.
slip joints, and you break it first and then do your batoning work that way, and then you're not doing any stress on the lock face or anything like that, or messing up the pivot.
It should be immediately clear to anyone watching, but when they say break, they really do just mean opening the lock interface, keeping the blade loose.
Yeah.
They don't mean actually breaking the knife.
Just break it in half, it'll be fine.
And that's going to definitely limit what you can process
100%.
as well because of the size of the blade. But like Nigel was saying, even on a
Yeah.
Swiss Army knife, they were doing it. So you imagine what kind of batoning they were doing.
Yeah.
Although, yeah,
You do have a fair amount.
something to run from
Even
front.
the
counterpoint. Now, I would be concerned about the counterpoint myself because of how thin the blade is and with the grind and stuff.
it wouldn't be my first choice as a baton.
No.
But
But as concerned as I would be with the Swiss Army, which again we've watched people do that, right?
Mhm.
So
Oz 8?
Oz 8A
Yeah.
for this version.
Oz
They
8A would be, if you're going to do it,
And
that would be
a
like
beautiful
the
option.
steel that you're going to use.
For sure.
Yeah.
They did recently upgrade it to Oz 10A, I believe, in the newer ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, with that in mind, yeah, that would be, and especially in our country that we're living at, that would probably be the most likely reason to carry something like this
Mhm.
would be for the outdoorsy. You want something heavy duty,
Yeah.
whether it's for work, whether it's for pleasure, for something that you can really, really reef on. But that kind of brings us into our last topic as well, and the other reason why you might have something like this in the collection.
It's a fun factor.
The giggle factor of it
Yeah.
is
Just pure enjoyment of the silliness of that knife.
yeah.
You know how slip joint enthusiasts talk about walk and talk?
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk in that walk.
There is.
And yeah, a lot of these knives are just over the top and ridiculous and silly, and they make us giggle, and that's why we enjoy them.
The first time you pull one out and you check it out, you're like,
This is
Holy crap.
awesome.
that is never something that I am going to carry in a day-to-day situation.
But you need to own it.
And
Because
Yeah.
you want it in your collection.
And as far as a collection piece, a conversation piece, things that as soon as people see them, they're like, well, what is that ridiculousness that you have?
This is the kind of thing you pull out when you're hanging out with your knife buddies.
Mhm.
Really, if you have it for the fun factor.
Well, and even non-knife buddies. I've got a lot
Yeah,
of,
I'll
like,
give you that.
the 6-inch tie light is my personal tie light here, and I bought it because of the fun factor a long time ago. And I still have buddies that are not knife people in any way, and that's like one of their favorites in my collection is because when you look at it,
It's
you're
a
like,
cool knife.
that thing's ridiculous, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up there with the ridiculousness of me customizing a ZT301 just because I can, like the silly factor, right?
Mhm.
So,
But
yeah.
but that's important, you know, to have fun with your hobby. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
People criticize about the impracticality, but I don't think anyone has this 100% pedestal you're standing on when it comes to functionality without having this hint of humor while you're
Mhm.
carrying something this big at the same time.
I only get tattoos that are really important to me, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
They're a storyboard of my life.
that's it.
Like, yeah.
There's got to be some fun in it.
You
Yeah.
gotta have a smile behind it. at the
That's
same
it,
time,
right?
And these knives all contribute in the smile factor, right?
Yeah.
So,
And definitely within the kind of custom knife realm, they've definitely been pushing the fun, silly aspect of it and doing the overbuilt stuff, like half-inch thick blades, just ridiculous monster knives and stuff.
we gotta call out, because we're talking about monster knives, I gotta call out Medford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow, like 5/16 of an inch thick on a pocket knife is not just overkill, but it's proving a point. It's like,
And I know there's guys out there that say, "Oh, well, I like what," or rather, you go online and you see threads on forums dedicated to, "Look what I did with my Medford today," because they're so proud that they got to do something with it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of guys that carry that kind of stuff regularly, so there's definitely a following for ridiculously overbuilt, ridiculously massive folders.
And one day when I'm sitting there needing to breach a door, I'm going to be so disappointed that I don't have a Medford in my pocket.
Yep.
But until that day comes, I'm pretty satisfied with not having a Medford in my pocket.
I was going to say, it's like a folding crowbar with a knife edge on
Oh
it.
man,
Pretty
it's
much.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
And not hate. Like,
no, it is
They're
what
cool
you're
knives.
buying them because they're fun.
yeah.
But you're buying them on another tier of fun compared to a cold steel blade or compared to some of the ZTs on the market.
There's a
Every time
whole-
I hold this knife, it puts a smile on my face. It's one of those situations.
Okay, so big knives, lots of fun.
They are.
Not exactly the most functional in the day-to-day lives of most people, but
Yep.
they are a lot of fun to hold.
Hmm.
A lot of fun to use when you do get to use them.
They put a smile on our faces.
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, I think if you find one that you enjoy and it makes you giggle and gives you that warm fuzzy feeling inside, get it.
You
Why
should
the hell
Nothing
not?
wrong with
Yeah,
that.
go
Yeah.
for it. It's a part of the hobby. You should appreciate it.
Indeed, indeed.
Find something that entertains you.
Yes.
It can be fun, not just function behind it, right?
Having something like this is just as silly as having something as little as that in your collection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and no, for sure.
We
Yeah.
can get on that, but before we do,
But again, it's having fun with it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And you continue to have fun with it, whether it's something tiny, whether it's something big.
That was my fault.
And
yes.
the function behind it, and coming from a guy who likes the boring gray titanium 3.5-inch draw point guy, I'm still saying, if you like it, if you have fun with it, definitely pick it up, because, yeah, you'll enjoy it.
Even if it's colorful.
Within reason.
You can't just stop at one. Come on. When has that ever been an option?
So yeah, we would like to thank Steve at Bevy Time for once again the drinks that he has supplied tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Yeah, as well as donating a couple knives for us to use during this video. And we would also like to thank the Cutting Edge for supplying a few of the knives that we're checking out tonight as well.
16 gun.
Yes.
Really? Is that all Cutting Edge donated?
Everything else is Joe's.
Everything
Yeah.
else is Joe donations? Yeah, okay. Well, regardless, thank you, Cutting Edge. For,
Thank you very much.
And especially for the frenzy, because Paul is not letting it go here.
No.
So,
I like it a lot.
Yeah, he enjoyed playing with it tonight. So thank you again to the Cutting Edge, and also to Steve from Bevy Time for hooking us up tonight
Mhm.
with everything. We made this episode really awesome. So
Welcome back, Joe.
Yes. And thank you for finally
Oh.
showing up.
yeah,
Yes.
thanks for not sucking after a month.
I stopped sucking.
Yay, well, the progression.
Okay.
It's a progression. You haven't stopped.
It's just
You've
a
just lessened.
healing process, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
He's sucking more gently now.
Hopefully by
Oh,
next
boy.
week we can beat the gentle right out of him.
Yeah.
This is all sounding really violent. So on that note,
Yeah, we definitely seems like we have some things to take care of. So, Nigel the Smith signing off.
I am who I am. I'm Dennis Vipers.
I am the Iron Joe.
And I am XL.ca.
We will see you again next week.
Jesus Christ, I'm drunk.